April 1912, the world's most advanced passenger liner, the RMS Titanic, set sail on her maiden voyage across the North Atlantic. She represented luxury, innovation, and confidence in modern engineering. Many believed she was the safest ship ever built. But beneath the pride and excitement, a series of warning signs appeared clear. Signals of danger that were overlooked, delayed, or underestimated. The tragedy that followed was not simply the result of an unexpected iceberg. It was the result of warnings that were received but not fully acted upon. From the beginning of the voyage, the Titanic was moving into a region known for seasonal ice. April was a time when large icebergs drifted south from Greenland into major shipping lanes. Other ships traveling through the North Atlantic were already encountering heavy ice fields. Throughout April 14th, the Titanic received multiple wireless messages from nearby vessels reporting dangerous ice conditions directly along her route. One of the earliest warnings came from the ship Coronia, which reported large quantities of ice and icebergs. Later, the Baltic sent a detailed message describing ice fields and massive bergs. The message was delivered to the bridge and even shown to Captain Edward Smith. For a moment, the seriousness of the situation was acknowledged, but no major course change or significant speed reduction followed. As the day continued, more warnings arrived. The ship Californian reported that it had stopped for the night because it was surrounded by heavy pack ice. This was a critical signal. If another ship had been forced to stop completely, the danger level was extremely high. However, the Titanic's wireless operators were overwhelmed with passenger messages. Personal communications to shore were a paid service and took priority. When the Californian attempted to send another ice warning, the Titanic's operator responded impatiently, asking not to be interrupted. That final warning never reached the bridge. Speed was one of the most important warning signs that went ignored. Despite repeated ice reports, the Titanic continued traveling at about 22 knots, close to her maximum speed. At the time, many captains believed large ships were safer when moving quickly, and that icebergs could be avoided with proper lookout. But this belief did not account for the specific conditions that night. The evening of April 14th brought unusually dangerous visibility. The sea was extremely calm, and the sky was clear but moonless. Normally, waves breaking at the base of an iceberg create white foam that makes it easier to see. But the calm water eliminated this visual cue. The darkness made the horizon difficult to distinguish. These conditions greatly reduced the distance at which an iceberg could be spotted. Maintaining high speed under such conditions significantly reduced reaction time. The environment itself was a warning, but the ship did not slow. Even small operational details reflected a lack of urgency. The lookout crew stationed in the crow's nest did not have binoculars. A key for the locker containing them had been misplaced before departure. While experts still debate how much difference binoculars would have made on such a dark night, their absence symbolized a broader pattern. Preparation assumed routine conditions, not high-risk ones. Another overlooked warning sign was the lack of emergency readiness. There had been no full lifeboat drill for passengers during the voyage. Many crew members were unfamiliar with their specific evacuation duties. Lifeboats were present, but not organized for rapid deployment. This reflected the widespread belief that a major emergency was unlikely. At 11:40 p.m., the final warning appeared not as a message, but directly ahead. The lookout spotted a dark shape in the water and rang the warning bell. First Officer William Murdoch immediately ordered the ship to turn and engines to reverse. But at the Titanic's speed and size, there was not enough time. The ship struck the iceberg along her starboard side. Even after the collision, warning signs continued to be underestimated. At first, many passengers were told there was no serious danger. The ship's designer, Thomas Enders, quickly realized that multiple compartments were flooding and that the ship would sink within hours. But this information took time to spread. Passengers hesitated to leave the warm, brightly lit ship for small lifeboats in the cold darkness. Precious time was lost while the seriousness of the situation slowly became clear. The evacuation itself revealed earlier warnings about insufficient lifeboat capacity. The Titanic carried only 20 lifeboats, enough for about half the people on board. This decision had been influenced by outdated maritime regulations and confidence in the ship's design. Even worse, many of the early lifeboats were lowered only partially filled. Crew members feared overloading them, and passengers were reluctant to board. The warning signs of limited capacity and poor preparation became deadly realities. Meanwhile, distress rockets were fired into the night sky. The nearby Californian saw the rockets, but did not interpret them as signals of a major emergency. Its wireless operator had gone to sleep and was not listening for messages. Once again, a warning sign was seen but not properly understood. As the bow sank deeper and the stern rose into the air, it became clear that the situation was irreversible. At approximately 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, the Titanic broke apart and disappeared beneath the Atlantic Ocean. More than 1,500 people lost their lives, many from exposure to the freezing water. In the aftermath, investigations in the United States and Britain focused not only on the collision but on the warnings that had preceded it. The evidence showed that the disaster was not sudden or unpredictable. The Titanic had received at least 6 major ice warnings on the day of the collision. Environmental conditions had signaled increased danger. Operational readiness had been limited. Communication priorities had delayed critical information. The tragedy led to sweeping changes in maritime safety. Ships were required to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board. Continuous wireless monitoring became mandatory so that distress calls and warnings would never be missed. Regular safety drills were introduced for both crew and passengers. The International Ice Patrol was established to monitor iceberg movement and provide real-time warnings to ships crossing the North Atlantic. The story of the Titanic is often remembered for the moment of impact, but the deeper lesson lies in what happened before it. Disasters rarely occur without warning. They develop through a chain of signals reports, conditions, small oversights that seem manageable when viewed individually. The danger comes when these signals are normalized, delayed, or dismissed. The warning signs the Titanic ignored were not hidden. They arrived through wireless messages, environmental clues, operational gaps, and safety limitations. But confidence, routine practice, and competing priorities reduced their urgency. Each decision seemed reasonable at the time. Together, they created a situation where a single iceberg became catastrophic. More than a century later, the Titanic remains a powerful example of how risk is often misunderstood. Technology and reputation can create a sense of security that lowers caution. Warnings may be heard but not fully acted upon. Preparation may assume normal conditions instead of worst-case scenarios. The legacy of the Titanic is not only a story of tragedy but a lasting reminder. Danger often announces itself long before disaster strikes. The true failure was not the collision itself, but the series of warning signs that were seen, received, and ultimately ignored.